Hi, and welcome to my first, official YouTube video, where today I'm going to show how I darn my pointe shoes. I always get questions from my friends asking how I darn them, and some people on my Instagram, so I thought I'd finally make a video and show you how I do that. So first I'm going to take my crochet thread. I just get this on Amazon in like the closest color to my pointe shoes. And then you're just going to take a long piece of thread. Now I put it on my bed and I just kind of stretch it till it's like 2 arms lengths or more. Then after I cut the thread, I put the 2 ends together and I kind of double it up. And in the end, it'll kind of be like quadruple. And then when I get to the end, I cut it where the 2 meet. And then so I have 2 threads that are kind of intertwined together. And then I'm going to thread that through my needle. Then once I thread it through the needle, I make sure that the ends line up. There we go. So I kind of darn them the exact same on both shoes, so it doesn't really matter which one's right or left. Then I'm going to start sewing right here on the bottom corner, right where the end is, kind of the corner, because I like to go around this way in a circle. So I start right here. I thread that almost all the way through till about like there. Do a little bit hanging. And then I'm going to do one more stitch. And I'm also just using a regular needle that I use when I sew my ribbons and elastic on my pointe shoes. The tricky part is keeping the pieces that we left out not looped into the first initial stitch, but once I do my second one, it should be a loop. So I just haven't pulled it all the way through, and then I'm going to knot it so that it doesn't come undone while I am darning around. Then I loop it through and then just pull, and it makes a knot. After I do the knot, I can cut this so that it doesn't get in our way while we darn. And then my little life hack, I guess, to darn is I use the drawstring from old pointe shoes, or the cut-off drawstring from pointe shoes I'm wearing, just whatever drawstring. And I kind of use that as the base to go around the tip of the pointe shoe. So to kind of insert it into the darning, I do another stitch, just still going around the edge of the pointe shoe. And then again, before you pull it all the way through and there's a loop, then I just take my drawstring and place it on the inside and then pull. Now it might be like wonky like this, but that's okay because as you go around it'll straighten up. So then I just continue sewing around the edge of the pointe shoe, making sure to focus on making the platform larger. So I like to look at the platform and then go on the outside of it. So kind of on the outside and then down. Again, around the drawstring. And I like to use the drawstring because it's a more sturdy base than using just regular knots with the thread. So I used to do that, and then over time it would get really flat and wouldn't really do anything. And so I started using the drawstring, and that also helps it last longer and still be beneficial for the whole lifespan of your pointe shoe. Okay, and then now that I've made a loop, I just continue doing that all the way around. I like to take my time on the first loop around because it kind of sets the shape of the entire circle on top. Also, sometimes I use a thimble here just to help push the needle through each stitch because over time it can start to hurt your thumb. And then once I get to around here, so just around the top of the point shoe, then I cut the drawstring here because I don't like to put it on the back side of the point shoe, just so that it can be easier for me to roll up and down off a point without having the drawstring in the way. So the drawstring is beneficial for the top to make sure you are nice and stable on point, but then I can still roll down easily because it's not on the back. And then I make one more stitch over the end of the drawstring that's just kind of like poking out there. And then now that it's nice and flat and won't get in our way, then I begin doing the same just loops around the edge. And then when we go back around, I'll show you what I do to make that a bit more sturdy as well. But then over time, again, it does flatten because the drawstring is not there. So then I'll just go around the back. And then once I get near the end, and then we run into the beginning of our darning where we had that little tail, then I just make sure to sew around it so that it can stay flattened down. And then also the other end of our drawstring, sometimes I cut that if it's too long. And then I also make sure to sew that down as well. Here I am just trying to put a stitch around the drawstring so that it stays down. There we go. And now that we have our first circle around, I just go around again doing the exact same thing, the loops, but I kind of fill in the gaps. So as you can see, there's kind of like, you know, it looks like a little pattern around, but I just kind of stitch in the little gaps just to make it a little more sturdy and cleaner. You could also leave it like this, I'm sure. It would still do something. Yeah. Yeah, so to get into the little cracks, I start the stitch right where the opening is, make sure it catches onto the fabric and stays, and then it sits perfectly, and you can see how the difference right there versus all the way around. And then once we make it all the way around the top, now we're at the section without the drawstring, and for this I like to go through the previous stitch I have already made underneath it to kind of cross it, I guess. And then when you pull that through, before you pull it all the way and it makes a little loop, then thread through and it'll make a knot. And then I'm going to do that through all of these stitches there. Then, once I get to the very end, sometimes I like to make one final knot to kind of close the circle. And then to make a more official knot so that it really doesn't come undone, I will cut the end, not too much off. Just, I have about that much left. And it's always better to have more thread than less, because if you have less then you run out and it's just a whole mess, because then you have to rethread a needle and start over. So I would recommend cutting more than you need. Luckily I had lots left over. And now with the extra thread, I'm going to separate each one, so there should be 4. Then when I have my 4 threads kind of spread out, I'm gonna try and explain this as best as possible. It's kind of like making a friendship bracelet. You're gonna take one of the threads and knot it around the other 3. So, I don't know how to show this. Okay, wait. This is a terrifying angle, but okay. So you have your 4 threads. You definitely don't have to knot it like this, but I just like to, and I also feel like it stays the most secure. So then take one of your threads and then the next one, and you're gonna knot it around. Oh my gosh, wait. Like that, and then pull. Okay. And then with the same thread that you knotted it, you're gonna take the next one. So the one that knots is always the one that knots. So then you do that to the next one. And then the last one. Then when I have my little knots here on the end, I also find that when I knot it that way, it's easier to flatten down and not get in the way. So I'll just cut each of them kind of short, not too short, that they come undone right away. And then with the little blob, I just like smush it. It kind of sticks out, but not really. And then once you start dancing, you don't even notice it at all. And then the test to see if I did a good job is if I can stand it up and it stays. Okay. Yay! So that's the one side. Usually takes me around 15 to 20 minutes. I've certainly gotten a lot faster than when I started. It used to take me around an hour or 30 minutes roughly in between there for each, and it's also gotten prettier each time, so practice does make perfect. Okay, and now I'm gonna do the other shoe off camera. So now I've darned both point shoes. I hope you learned something while watching this. I certainly remember watching YouTube videos when I first learned to darn, and I kind of watched a bunch of videos and then came up with my own way to darn them, so you can certainly do that as well. Use this for inspiration. But yeah, I hope it made sense and you all enjoyed it. Thanks. Bye!